الله خلاقي ومهجة مهجتي حب فدته النفس كل فدائي
ہے میرا خالق خدا وہ جان من وہ جان فضا وہ میرا محبوب ہے اس پر میرا سب کچھ فدا.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Dear viewers, welcome to yet another episode of our program Asma'ullahi al-Husna, the beautiful names of Allah. In today's program, we'll discuss the attribute of Allah An-Nur, and inshallah this will be the final in this series. And as usual, I am joined in the studio by our regular guest, Brother Fabakari Kale and Ustaz Musa Bah. Welcome to the program, gentlemen. As a form of introduction or as a way of beginning this program, Ustaz, can you give us briefly the meaning of the attribute An-Nur?
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وبارك وسلم إنك حميد مجيد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuhu to our dear viewers. Now, the question about the definition, meaning of the attribute of Allah, An-Nur. An-Nur literally means light. Now, when it comes to spiritual terms, we know that Allah is the only one who can give light. And as spiritual matters are almost always explained by physical matters, we can logically understand that without light we cannot see, even in the physical world. And that is why we need light. We need to, at night, for example, when darkness comes, we have to put on a fire, we have to light candles, or when we have electricity. In the same way, in the spiritual realm also, without the light of Allah, guidance of Allah, one cannot see. And if one cannot see, that means one is not guided. Yes.
Ustaz, if we discuss further in the Holy Quran, chapter 24, verse 36, Ayatul Nur, what does this verse talk about? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, I have just touched on that. In that verse, Allah the Almighty says, Allahu nuru samawati wal ard, that Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. Now, obviously, we can see that the heavens represent the spiritual realm, and the earth represents material realm. So the point is that in both cases, both spiritual matters and physical matters, one needs the guidance, the light of Allah to be able to see, to be able to be rightly guided. And that is why we know, for example, that some people can have good intentions. They can be good, they can be pious even, but if they do not have the light of Allah, if they don't have the guidance, one cannot call them righteous people. So we always, as human beings, need the light of Allah. And this verse is going into detail to talk about that. And then it gives the Holy Prophet Muhammad as a reference to this. Yes.
Jazakallah. Thank you very much. If I come to you, Brother Fabakari, Ustaz mentioned that we as human beings, we need the guidance of Nur, guidance to the Nur of Allah. Can you elaborate a little bit on that in terms of who receives the guidance to the Nur of Allah the Almighty?
To elaborate on who received the guidance or the Nur of Allah, I will refer you back to one of the attributes of Allah we've discussed, where we talk about Allah being the guide, and to guide people on the right path and on the right functions also. Whatever we do as human, we need to be clear with what we're doing, and then therefore the expression, the light, came up to show us that as human we have the capacity to choose between the darkness and the opposite of darkness, which is the light. And Allah provides that light to us. And that's why when you discuss in the Holy Quran, we realize that many a time when Allah presents to us that He's presented us the light, and then we'll say He gave us the book. So the books, the recipient of the book, or the recipient of the divine instructions from Almighty Allah, had been recipient of the Nur. Now, the other aspect of it will be whether they believe in it or not. Because that's where the guidance issue came up in. The other aspect of it is that the light, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, had also been presented to us in the manifestation of Allah's Nur. And again, he's been the best of example to mankind, and he's been sent to whole of mankind. So we are all recipients of this Nur. The question now will be, how are we using this Nur? How are we benefiting from it?
In relation to how do we use this Nur and benefit from this, in the Holy Quran, chapter 46, verse 9, belief in the Nur of Allah the Almighty. Ustaz, can you give us a bit of context in that regard?
Yes, thank you very much. You see, believing in Allah has different aspects. We are talking about believing, not only believing that Allah exists, but we believe in all His attributes also. And among the attributes of Allah is a Nur, that He is the light, He is the one who gives light and guides people to light. Now, basically, if you look at what the function of light is to guide people. Like I always say, the physical world shows us what is actually in the spiritual realm also. Now, in the world, in the physical world, we know that we need light all the time. Now, that is why in the day, Allah the Almighty has created the sun. In the night, He has created the moon for us to see. But He has also given us our faculties to be able to think and come up with ways through which we can see. Now, among those faculties, we have been able to discover the use of candles, the use of kerosene, the use of so many other sources. They are all the favors of Allah the Almighty. And now, we have reached a stage where we have electricity, where you have light bulbs, you switch on the bulb, it's almost like it is day. Now, it's the same thing that happens in the spiritual realm also. You see, it is interesting to note that actually darkness does not have independent existence. It doesn't. It is light that has independent existence. Now, when darkness only occurs when we obstruct the light of Allah the Almighty. That is both in the spiritual sense and in the physical sense also.
So essentially, darkness is the absence of light.
Exactly, yes.
It doesn't exist on its own.
You can imagine, you can talk of the source of a light, but you cannot talk of source of darkness. So darkness is just when we obstruct the light.
Indeed.
Yes.
Abakari, I think you wanted to add something to that.
Yeah, just like he raised it. I mean, the chapter. We look at that, and when Allah talks to us about that light, he told us. I think it's that chapter 45. He just told us here. I can just read from the Quran here. He says, Allah said to us, "Oh, you people, manifest proof has indeed come to you from your Lord, and we have sent down to you a clear light." Again, there is already light to us, and that is, as I discussed before, in the presentation of the Quran, in the presentation of the divine revelations, and is the obstruction of those lights that brought about the darkness that Ustaz has been discussing. That's just what I want to add.
Yeah, thank you very much. Ustaz, if we move, you mentioned a little bit about light being spiritual but also physical. Can the spiritual light be manifested physically?
Yes, the spiritual light can be manifested physically. Now, this has been discussed in the Holy Quran in several places also, and in the history of Islam, in the sayings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one finds reference to these things. it appears in so many ways. At one place, for example, the Holy Quran talks about the signs of the believers. Simahum fi wujuhihim. Their signs, these are on their faces. Now, at one place, it also talks about their light running in front of them. Now, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has explained this further in saying that a righteous person is not difficult to recognize. You see, when someone is righteous, someone has a connection, a liqa, a link with Allah the Almighty. Once you see the person, there is some pool of attraction that tells you that this person is a righteous person. For example, once someone went to Qadian, that is the birthplace of the promised Messiah, alayhi salatu wasalam. Actually, he was not a person who is very interested in religion. He was from Britain, but he has heard of the promised Messiah and the Ahmadiyya community. And then he was intrigued to go and see. Now, he went to Qadian. Actually, the first person he met was Mulvi Sher Ali, if my memory serves me right. That is the companion who translated the Holy Quran. And then he asked that he wanted to see this founder of the community that people are talking about. And then he was shown to the mosque, and Promised Messiah was sitting down with his companions discussing. But immediately, his eyes fell on the Promised Messiah. His immediate reaction was that this person cannot be a liar. There's no way this person can tell a lie. So that means that there is that light that physically appears also in the faces of the righteous ones. So yes, the light appears physically also.
Indeed, and in the Holy Quran also we learn that the Holy Prophet saw the light of Allah the Almighty.
Exactly.
Yes. Tabaka, if I come back to you, we'll talk about the benefits of recognizing the nur of Allah and in living in it in this world. Can you discuss that a little bit?
Okay, the benefit of the nur of Allah, living on it, we discuss this in the context of the verse of the Quran, when Allah said to us, those that are blind in this world will not see in the next world. He referred to being blind in the context of people who have seen the signs of Allah and choose not to ponder over them and choose not to benefit from them as being blind. So on the day of judgment, they will still be blind. They will not still benefit from it. So in a sense, we could say, therefore, that one need to recognize the signs of Allah, see them, and benefit from them on this earth. So if you choose not to benefit from them, you will be considered blind. And if you are blind on this earth, you will be blind in the next world.
Indeed. Ustaz, you want to add some things?
Yes, you see, in everything, like the spiritual world and the physical world, we can always learn lessons. For example, we know that Allah the Almighty, out of His Rahmaniyat, He created the earth, He sends down rain for the benefit of mankind or for the benefit of creation. But one can sit and choose not to cultivate anything, fold your hands and rest. Of course, therefore, when time of harvest comes, you cannot harvest like others. So in the same way, Allah the Almighty has provided the light in the form of guidance through the Holy Quran. He has called it the light. The Holy Prophet ﷺ received this light and spread it to the world. He extended the message. So it is now left to people to take the initiative to ponder over these things, to think about them, to study nature and study the teachings of the Holy Quran, study what the Holy Prophet is saying, and then benefit from it. But if they just sit down and say, it's not plausible that someone should be sent from God, how is there a God? And then folds his hands. When the time of harvest comes, on the day of judgment, they will not harvest, just like the ones who did not go to the farm will not harvest. Yes.
This is explained in further detail in one of the sermons of the 5th Caliph of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat on December 25th, 2009. And he explained this concept of nur and the concept of Allah being the guide. And I think we discussed this in the previous episode, but it's important to bring it up again to say Allah is not biased. He has presented it to us, but it's one's own effort with the efforts you have taken that makes you understand and accept. And I used one of the phrases he uses: if the sun rays is out and you choose to close your door, you will not benefit from it. So the light of Allah is already here, and it's important for people to recognize it and benefit from it here.
Thank you very much. Ustaz, we'll talk about the benefiting from this, light, from the nur of Allah. How is an individual, Muslims or otherwise, how can they benefit from this? What steps can they take to ensure they benefit from this?
Okay, you see, first of all, the Holy Quran and the sayings of the Holy Prophet make us understand that every human being has this light in you. When Allah created man, He put this in you, a light. And that is why the Holy Quran, in some instances, it's called zikr. Zikr literally means reminder. You remind a person of something he knows, or maybe he forgot or not, but when you say remind, it is because he knows about it. Now, when the Holy Quran calls itself a reminder, therefore, it points to us that what the Holy Quran teaches is already in us as human beings. Now, it's whether we take it up and explore it further or ignore it to our own detriment. Now, when you see someone do something, everyone, whether you agree or not, everyone knows what is good and what is bad. Basically, every human being knows this. So when someone is doing something, there is something in him urging him to either go forward or retreat. Now, the promised Messiah has written about this in the philosophy of teachings of Islam, where he talks about nafsul mutmainna and nafsul lawama. That is the soul that urges you to do good, and the soul that accuses you. Now, we cannot go into that detail, but the point is that whatever it is someone is doing, there is something that is, telling you, whether that is good or not. And you can choose to ignore it and block it. Ultimately, you reach a stage where you will have no conscience, because you have blocked it so much, it has almost died down. So that can happen. But what one needs to do is to follow the urge to do the good things. In the Holy Quran, Allah talks about balil insana ala nafsihi bashira, that human beings, man is the first witness against himself. When someone does something, whether you tell him or not, whether he openly agrees or not, he knows that it is bad. So therefore, it is in man already to know what is good and bad. Now, how do we benefit from it? Allah the Almighty has sent us messengers. In every age, Allah has sent messengers. He calls himself Hadi, the guide. It is not for us to just find out Allah. No, He sent the guides. He reveals Himself. Now, if a human being follows those messengers or finds out about them, then he should make every effort to ensure that he tries to understand what they are saying. They explain about Allah, they explain about what you should do, what Allah wants you to do, so that you can benefit from that light. But if you ignore it, if you ignore the call of the messenger of any given time, then you will be doing it at your own detriment.
Ustaz mentioned how the light of the believers will run before them on the day of judgment. Sort of their light will help them essentially in terms of on the day of reckoning.
Yes, the expression that they on the day of reckoning their light run before them also indicates the acceptance of the guidance now. So therefore that explains the benefit of their action. Like we've been given a lot of expression from the beginning of this program and from everywhere in the Quran. We've been given that expression to understand Allah with all the faculties that Allah has given us. We talk about Him being the Ahad, and then we need to put trust in Him and all those things. So if we choose to live that life, in this world. So on the day of reckoning, like he started with first statement that every part of our body will serve as our witness. So they will witness against us, but they will also witness for us to provide, to show out what we did and what we did good. Now, the same expression was used for disbelievers when they will call on the believers to say, can you give us part of your life? So the light in that context, therefore, refers to the good deeds that we have performed in this world.
Ustaz, when we talk about Muslims, especially in Islam, Muslims as what message do you have, essentially, let me frame the question in a better way and say, what message do you have for Muslims who could or should serve as a source of light for others in society, especially in terms of of spiritual endeavor to manifest the attributes of Allah the Almighty?
Yes, every Muslim, in fact, let me use the word believer, should be an exemplar, and his surroundings should benefit from him. In fact, it is on record that the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has said that if a good Muslim, if a believer lives in a particular locality, even the animals should be aware of his being there because of his beneficence, in every sense of the word, in the material world and in the spiritual world, because he will show a good example. Now, in fact, that is said to be the best form of preaching, as the best form of spreading the message of Islam, by your conduct, by your behavior. Now, Jesus Christ is reported to have said that a tree is recognized by its fruits. So, if a Muslim, a believer, lives somewhere and is in a society, he should have such exemplary character that if something is said about him, anyone who hears will say, no, that cannot be. It is not from him. And we see a lot of that in our societies. Like I gave you the example of this man who went to see the promised Messiah. And by just looking at him, he said, no, this man cannot be a liar. He saw a light in him. Now, if a Muslim lives somewhere, you should be exemplary in the sense that whatever you do, you are like an ambassador of Islam. Whatever you do, people will judge Islam according to that. So therefore, a Muslim should exhibit exemplary character, to be truthful, to be kind, to be honest, and to always endeavor to spread the light of Allah. And the light of Allah is simply His guidance. And that is what every Muslim should do. The Holy Prophet ﷺ has spoken very highly of making efforts to convey the message of Islam. And that is not only verbally, but also by one's conduct. So in our time, I'll give you an example. A few years ago, there was this Danish cartoonist, I think he died a few days ago, who drew a cartoon of the Holy Prophet, and he was very disrespectful to Islam. And around the world, when the Muslims knew about it, they started bombing places, burning flags, and causing a lot of destruction. What did the Ahmadiyya Muslim community do? The Khalifa of the time instructed the Amir of that country to go and present a copy of the Holy Quran to this man. And they did that. They visited and they presented a copy of the Holy Quran to the authorities, and they used that to the media also, so that people will see actually this is what the Holy Quran says, not what every other person is showing. But what is the lesson there? The lesson is that this is the true reaction of a true believer. But that brings me to another side. I don't know whether we still have the time. In the verse that talks about Nur, Allah the Almighty talks of the light being as in a lustrous lamp, which is in a niche, and then it's covered. If you look at some houses, they have these big lamps, but inside the bulb, there's a bulb, but there's a cover also. So that explains the relationship between the Prophet, the Khalifa, and now the believers. Now, we live in a time where we have a Khalifa, a spiritual guide. Now, he is the source of light currently. Now, he spreads that light and continues to exhibit and manifest it for the world to see. And that is the example of what our current Khalifa is doing. For example, talk about peace. And the world, everyone is talking about the need of peace, because if there's no peace, nothing can work. And our Khalifa is continuously making efforts to spread the message of how peace should be maintained. So that, in a nutshell, tells us what we should do, what believers are expected to do.
If I come to you, Brother Fabakai, in what may be the last question, depending on how long you take. Ustaz has mentioned earlier on that almost in every individual there's that inner light in them. Therefore, what we do, and especially through zikrullah, is to remember to make efforts to each other. How do you sort of rekindle this light to sort of attain or exhibit the attribute of light of Allah?
Well, how you do that is through your continuous striving to perfection. And zik is one thing that's talked about, but seeking forgiveness and striving to do, good at all time is one way of achieving this nur. Like you said, the concept of the light and the perfection in every human being, it's in there. But we as human beings also have some gaps. When we discuss Allah being the wakil, the one that guides our affairs, we discussed this, that because we are imperfect as human, we didn't follow all aspects, and Allah guides our systems over there. And where we are making errors, we seek forgiveness. And we also discuss Allah being the one that forgives and being the one that clean or bury the sins. Because as human, we can sin, we can err. And then in that process, we still seek for perfection. And all those guide to the last question you just asked me, that their light will run. And so the perfection comes up, that we always want to go to that path. And this will be, the desire for it will come when we reach the next world. We would have said, oh, why didn't I even do more than I've just done? So now that we have the opportunity to tell everybody from all the attributes that we've known about Allah, that He has in His Rahmaniyat and Rahimiyat, has provided in the Rahmaniyat everything that we need on this earth. And it's not as a result of our actions that is provided to us. And then the actions we have taken will be rewarded for them in the Rahimiyat. But He also told us along the line where we talk about He does not need our help. And He asks us to strive for the welfare. And in that striving, in the attribute of Al-Samad, He's telling us He is independent. So whatever strive we do, whether we spend physically, whether we spend spiritually, on the cause of Allah, it's not for Allah, it's for us. And that is going to help us get to the light. He has guided us and has given us guidance through the prophets. He's already told us in the Holy Quran that there is never a nation that has not got a warner, and has shown us a lot of ways that we can follow and we can reach to this nur, we can reach to His light. So we have the opportunity now. We are appealing to each and every one of us to make use of that opportunity. And even on the guide, we discussed the fact that if you have doubt between what's happening, because so many people are claiming to be the one following the right path, in which they will be the one benefiting from the nur, we've advised that go back to His guidance. And the guidance is presented in the laws. When He talks about the rules that the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in his last sermon, we discussed this. He given us the Holy Quran, the Hadiths, and his lifestyle. Let's go back to them and see whose action is or closer to what the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has presented, so that will help us understand all these fitna around us and a lot of other issues that are making us lose the benefit of this light.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your thoughts on this. That's all we had time for, dear viewers. Until we come your way again, this was the program, The Attributes of Allah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
الله خلاقي ومهجة مهجتي حب فدته النفس كل فدائي
ہے میرا خالق خدا وہ جان من وہ جان فضا وہ میرا محبوب ہے اس پر میرا سب کچھ فدا
یا من احاط الخلق بالآلاء نثني عليك وليس حول ثنائي